think we'll start this evening's webinar. We've got a lovely audience with us this evening out there in cyberspace. We can't see you, but you can see us. We might have some latecomers, so we'll admit them as we go along. This evening's webinar is the third one we've held this year as part of our United Through Diabetes programme. And we're going to be looking at the MyDesmond programme, which is an educational programme, especially for people with type 2 diabetes. This evening, we've muted all of your microphones and cameras, so we can't see you, but we do have a chat function, and you're welcome to put your questions in there for our guest speakers. My colleague Claire is going to be keeping a close eye on those this evening. So if you do have a question, and I know through the presentation, there are going to be some points where you can interact and answer some questions. At the end of the webinar, we've set some time aside for a Q&A. So if you have questions, then just pop them in the chat function and we'll pop those to our guest speakers.
So just to say, we're using chat at the bottom of your screen, not Q&A.
Indeed. And as you can see there on the screen, we're recording the webinar this evening, so you'll be able to rewatch it after the event. We're going to be adding this to the other events that have already happened this year on our United Through Diabetes digital hub. So that's a space on our website where we have previous webinars, event information, resources, and signposting to helpful websites and things to support the different webinars and topics that we've covered. But don't worry about looking for those, because tomorrow I'll email everybody and I'll send you the links along with other resources that have been provided by Bernie and Julia from the Leicester Diabetes Centre. So I think at that stage, I am going to introduce Bernie and Julia, hand over to them shortly. You already know me. My name's Lee. I'm the event coordinator here at DRWF. And Claire, my colleague, who's going to be looking after you this evening and answering and monitoring all your questions. Bernie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, I would. Thank you so much, Lee, and thanks, Claire, and thank you to the DRWF, get that one right, for inviting us this evening. Hugely excited to be here. My name is Bernie Stribling. I am a nurse by background, I think it's fair to say, but I don't do any clinical hands-on at the moment. I'm very much perhaps removed from that, still registered as a nurse. My role, I'm an assistant director based at the Leicester Diabetes Centre, and we're very fortunate in that we are part of the NHS, so part of clinical care in diabetes, but we're also a research centre. So we're affiliated with the University of Leicester, and that is quite a unique position, I think. So our directors are Professor Melanie Davies and Professor Kamalesh Kamti, and I think they're they're world renowned, but they're also renowned here across the UK as well, for both their work in prevention for diabetes, but also in type 1, type 2. And we have a range of professors. We're very fortunate in that we have a range of professors whose interests are around type 1 diabetes and technology, pregnancy, lifestyle. So we really cut across the range of diabetes, but also other cardiovascular disease, because again, we recognise they go hand in hand. Let me just pause for one moment and get Julia, my colleague from the Leicester Diabetes Centre, to introduce yourself.
Thanks, Bernie. Yeah, my name's Julia Burden. I work at the Leicester Diabetes Centre. I'm predominantly a Desmond sort of trainer, educator and assessor. So I deliver the Desmond Type 2 Diabetes Education Programme. and also train educators in how to do that, and then mentor them to carry on delivering Desmond around the country and in other areas. And but also my work involves then sort of working on the online platform, which we're going to be talking about today, which is MyDesmond. And then also, like Benny was saying, we do lots of different projects and research projects at the centre. So I'm involved in different bits and bobs around in the centre, looking at young adults with type 2 diabetes in particular. And also I'm a physio by background. So I actually do a few of the physical activity interventions in the centre as well, working with people with type 2 diabetes and foot ulcers. So I also do a little bit of that, so a bit of everything.
Bit of everything, like the rest of us, yeah. Thank you. My role in terms of the centre, I said I was one of the assistant directors, but it's to take what we do in research and put it out there in the real world. And throughout the presentation, I'll perhaps share some of those examples with people as well, which I think might be useful. I think our brief for this evening was to talk a little bit about MyDesmond and obviously try and make the session as interactive as possible through the chat function. But before we start on the sort of the MyDesmond, I think we perhaps need to go back a little bit further and talk about Desmond first. So with your blessing, I will get started, as they say. I will find the share button and let's get cracking.
I think it's fair to say as well, Bernie and Julia, that Leicester is probably considered one of the centres of excellence for diabetes.
Absolutely, yes. Yes, and I think particularly with the repertoire and the calibre of staff we have there, I think what the NHS recognises now, particularly in research, is that if you put a group of people with like-minded thoughts around research together, it will enable faster research, and that's something that we're seeing. Can I just check if you can see that screen, Lee, Claire? Yeah, I'm getting
yes.
That's all good one. Okay, let's move on. So the first sort of statement in this is probably going to be a little bit, oops, I say I'm going to move on. Let me try that one again. If I put my cursor on there, then moving forward. Yes, let's read that top line together. So the quality of diabetes care has in general remained poor. So as I said, a little bit contentious. The widespread failure to acknowledge the impact of patient education appears to evolve as the primary reason for this unsatisfactory situation. And I think it's fair to say we've been probably banging the drum around structured education, in particular the Desmond programme. For the last, Desmond has now been around for 22, 23 years, and we've been banging the drum ever since because we recognise living with a chronic condition such as diabetes is difficult, it's challenging. And we see that education to support people and empower them is critical to that. So Desmond, the programme for either people who are newly diagnosed or for people who've had diabetes a while, this is obviously type 2 diabetes, it fulfills all the NICE criteria, the National Institute for Clinical Excellence. And it does this by being quality assured, having a curriculum that's laid down, having trained educators, going in a particular format, delivered. So the same Desmond is delivered in Brighton as the same Desmond is delivered in Glasgow. The only difference is local dialect. And that's the bit that makes it different, but it's also the bit that clearly works as well. A typical Desmond face-to-face 6-hour day incorporates the following. We start with we call it the patient story. So this is an opportunity for people living with diabetes to explain their story. You know, what do they feel like when they were first diagnosed? What was going on? What's happening? We then move on to what diabetes is. And this isn't, you know, for those expecting GCSE results in the morning, it's not a GCSE in biology. It's more so around actually, let's understand what goes on in the body. Because then following that, we talk about ways of managing diabetes. We also talk a bit about consequences and risk, but the risk is personable. So it's to me. So if I'm living with type 2 diabetes, what we're talking about throughout this whole day is my diabetes. It's not Lee's diabetes, it's not Claire's diabetes, it's my diabetes. And that's what I think moves this apart from other programs more than anything else. We talk a lot about monitoring and taking action on what you need to do versus what you don't do. And then you can see on this pie chart, there's quite a bit on food choices, in particular about insulin resistance, fats and glucose. And later, Julia will be going through some of this on the MyDesmond, which is the app-based version. But let's just concentrate on the face-to-face version first. We recognise that physical activity is a really important part of management in terms of diabetes, but also the stress and the emotions that go on for people. So we talk about that. And then we finish with developing a personalised plan. And that's quite important because, again, we follow the theory that if you write it down, that means you are more likely to do it, to deliver on it. The Desmond RCT, the randomized control trial. So this is the same standard as bringing a medicine to market. So, for example, paracetamol has got X amount of molecules in, and the paracetamol anywhere should have the same molecules. And that's the same randomized control trial that we applied to the Desmond program. And what we found at the time, as I said, it's more than 20 years ago, but it still withstands today, is that there were changes in both weight loss, smoking cessation, but I think more importantly, the changes were sustained. So the dose effect of having Desmond or being involved in a Desmond group program are sustained over time. And that's really, really important. In terms of the rollout, you can figure out if you pop onto our Desmond site as to actually, is my area covered? And if so, what does it look like? Over the years, we've obviously covered the whole of the UK and Ireland, and we have created Desmond programs specifically for people, for example, with intellectual disabilities, the deaf community, and people with visual impairment and sight loss. I think we'll start with our type 2 program, and then we'll work from there as to how we move it out, how we branch out, really. I've said that it's more than 20 years old, but it's still having impact in 2025. And this is just absolutely fantastic because, 95% of people rated their group 4 or 5 out of 5. 98% felt that they had their questions answered, but more importantly, felt that they felt empowered to make a difference around their diabetes. If we look at something in practice, this was from a number of Leicestershire patients. So HbA1c dropped and significantly dropped in this group, having done one course of MyDesmond. So again, there is huge impact. I love the way we all talk about HbA1c, but it does give us that longer term outcome. And the longer term, I think, confidence around diabetes, we recognise here that it made a difference. In terms of other feedback, 44% rated good or very good understanding of type 2 diabetes before attending, but this then jumped to 95% after attending. And that's really quite significant because most people know a little bit about diabetes. We start on Mr. Google and then we work on the rest and we think which are the sources, which are the credible sources of information. But it's only when you bring people together in a forum, whether that's face-to-face or whether it's a forum online, that people begin to then trust as to what they're seeing and trust what's going on. In terms of international impact for Desmond, and then I will move on to MyDesmond, we took Desmond to Australia, I think it's now 15 years ago. I had the pleasure of taking it down under. MyDesmond is the program of choice. They have a national diabetes registrant scheme for people living with diabetes, and MyDesmond is the program which is on there, the program of choice. We also took Desmond to sub-Saharan Africa, and it's still going in Malawi even today, which is just fantastic from our perspective. So we started it with a research grant, but then I think what's testimony to this is the longevity once the researchers have gone home. And we did this through a philanthropic group who are actually based in Ireland. Oh, I'm Irish, by the way. And then what we found is that they continued this and it's having a huge impact. When you think of the ratio of healthcare professionals to people living with diabetes is so much more reduced, then having something that facilitates this empowerment approach is really quite, I think it's quite enlightening. It's quite humbling as well to actually see what a difference this can really make. Okay. In terms of Desmond, as I said, Desmond was for people living with type 2 diabetes. We have Walking Away and Let's Prevent, which is our prevention program. So this is sort of, hang on, can we do something before people are actually diagnosed with it? I Can Live Healthy. So this is for people, I think, Julia, you mentioned it, for people who are under the age of 18 living with type 2 diabetes. Again, we recognise that that is a huge need. What else have we developed? We've developed so many programs. Baby Steps. This is for women who've developed gestational diabetes during pregnancy. We again recognise this group are at higher risk, so we developed a program to support them to think, let's keep you healthy and let's keep baby healthy for the duration. And another area we've worked on that is literally taking off is our Shift program. So this is a unique program for lorry, well, it started for lorry drivers, but now it's for all of transport, because again, lorry drivers, just due to the nature of what they do, they can't sort of think, oh, I'll get up and walk about for a while. They're sort of driving and they can't go anywhere. So they have an occupational hazard around having to sit for prolonged periods of time. We recognise, again, they're at rather high risk. Their age goes against them. But as well as that, they're subject to poor food choices in terms of availability on the roads, etc. So we've developed a program, a short shift, which is just a 1-hour program, and a 7-hour program for people who need to undertake, because all drivers undertake, HGV drivers undertake mandatory training every year. So we've got that now as part of it. We're working with Transport for London, we're working with coach drivers, and we're working with bus drivers. And we've still got to manage the courier drivers, but we're getting there. It's just work in progress, but it's probably the first time we've taken a program outside of what I would consider pure healthcare, more into work-related occupations. But again, we recognise, I think, the value of that, which is about prevention. We've recently had our NHS 10-year plan, and I think what we've seen with that is that prevention is perhaps far better than anything else. Right, let me move on to MyDesmond. Okay, and this is where we changed tact a little bit, because we recognise that there was a volume of people out there and was thinking, okay, how do we provide something with the same quality, with the same rigour, but still could be accessed by a range of people if perhaps occupation meant that you couldn't actually attend a group, or if not, maybe there weren't groups that were commissioned or sufficient numbers commissioned. What we were saying is, well, actually, there is a different way of doing it. So this is available on any device. What makes us different is that we are the NHS, and we're very proud of that, because again, we're not for profit. We are the NHS. We charge for delivering training, but that's about keeping our educators employed, really, more than anything else. And the features on this, which Julia will talk about, Ask the Expert and the Buddy system, and they're probably the biggest 2 features that are used around that support mechanism. So when we first, available on all devices. When we first thought about MyDesmond, we looked at what were the theories and the philosophies behind the Desmond program itself, because they're the little black box in terms of what makes it work, what makes it happen. And how can we then take those and not just use a little bit of gamification, there you go, but more importantly, how can you take them and make sure that they're still embedded in our virtual program, in our online program? And we have successfully done that. In terms of these are just some outcome measures from it. User retention, we recognise people will download an app a month later, 2 months later, it's gone because just moved on, I want to do something different. But here, 58% of users who use MyDesmond for at least 6 months continue using the program for at least 12 months. And there's a few of our patients that I think 4 or 5 years later, they're still on the program. There is no time limit, so they're still on the program, they still love it, they're using it in a way that fits for them, fits for their lifestyle. And I guess if you have an app, the idea is that you sort of pick it up, you briefly do something, you check something, you move on. But in doing that, that will still give you the information you need, but more importantly, it gives you, I guess, the confidence around your management in terms of diabetes. For body weight, just over 52% of users classified as overweight or obese at the start of using MyDesmond lost 5%, greater than 5% of their body weight after using MyDesmond for 6 months. In terms of HbA1c, the long-term blood sugar, again, 150 users reported that their HbA1c was just greater than 7 at the start of using MyDesmond, and then 64% of those achieved a HbA1c of less than that after using it for 6 months. So it does work in terms of, I think, keeping those biomedical markers that sometimes we focus on too much within range. But we also looked at what are the important bits. So the diabetes-related distress piece, so 53% of the users experienced reduction in that, and 62% of our users experience the confidence, an increasing confidence to self-manage. That to us is the bits that I think get us out of bed in the morning and make us want to do our job even better. More impact stuff for you. 66% reported that they were more active, and 87% reported that they had a better understanding of their condition. In terms of users and numbers, we've now got 60,000 users on the platform. That's a big milestone. We did one of those, I think, congratulations claps, 1.5 million logins. What we find is that there's still consistency in this. People are still using it. People are still there, still making it happen. And on that particular platform, we have MyDesmond. We've got a range of programs again. M3, so this is for people under the age of 40 living with type 2 diabetes. And we recognized we needed a different way of communicating, a different way of perhaps messaging, a different way of doing things, which is why we produced a very separate program. Our prevention program is on there. We've got MyFoot for people who've experienced foot ulceration as a result of the complications of diabetes. And we recognize this particular group are very vulnerable. So it's thinking, okay, how do we support? It's how do we make some of this happen? We've also got, for the very first time, a kidneys program on there. Again, we recognize that tenuous link between diabetes and kidney disease. And this is something that has created a lot of interest, as you can imagine. But again, it follows the same rigor, but more importantly, it sits on a platform that we know upholds NHS standards in terms of that digital world. And I think, bear with me, right, so that was the end of MyDesmond. I'm just doing a really quick whistle-stop tour because I want us to, I think, experience MyDesmond with what Julia is saying. But if you can humour me for like another 60 seconds, I want to share two things with our audience tonight. One is called Steps for Health. So this is something that our lifestyle team developed, okay? And it's a free online program. Again, it's downloadable, but it's a web-enabled app, not a downloadable app as yet from the App Store. But we're making this free for people because it offers you personalized steps. So the idea is for the first 3 days of downloading this or getting access to this and the QR code, you can do that one. And it asks you to either link with your Garmin or your Fitbit, so to understand what is it that you do in a typical day. It's not asking you to run a marathon or do whatever. It's just sort of saying, what would you normally do? And then it sets your goal accordingly. So if I'm doing 2,500 steps a day, it's going to say, not, Bernie, you're a far cry from your 7,500. It's going to say, well, actually, Bernie, can you do 2,600? So that's a couple more times up and down that stairs. And I'd have thought, probably can't do that. It also allows you to bring family members or buddies in. So again, you can go, let's do a little bit of team playing here and see who can come out on top. There's nothing better than, having a little bit of activity with a little bit of I can beat you tonight. I can do whatever. Oh, Lee's on that. Right. Okay. I'm just going to move a bit more and I'm going to beat him today. Yeah, it's available. It's free. If people want it, I'll make sure that this comes across onto your DRWF website as well, Lee. And then my final bit, which I think fits very nicely with who we're supporting tonight, it's to do with research. So it is a little plea for research to say research really does make that world go round. It really has a huge impact around people's lives, but more importantly, people can be that story in the making. So this is what we've got at the Leicester Diabetes Centre now. And I recognise that there will be people from all over the country listening to us. And it's about go to your local centre, think about what they've got on offer. If not, ask, say, are you doing any research? And if not, why not? You know, diabetes is a very common disease. We need to make sure that we're on top of things. So we've got, this is just a snapshot of what we've currently got on offer. So there's quite a number of trials at the moment around the new weight loss medications and new weight loss medications. We all recognise that a lot of them are weekly injections. We're looking at monthly injections. So things move on, things progress at an incredible rate. We're also looking at physical activity and lifestyle, and what does that look like in relation to other disease areas? HEAL-D, it's healthy eating and active lifestyle for diabetes in African and Caribbean communities. There's such a lot going on, but within your local research centre, within your local hospital, there will be something happening. And it is a bit of a plea for research to say, you can change that journey, you can change that trajectory. I'm just going to stop, because what I really want to do, stop sharing, yeah, come back on screen. What I really want to do, I think, is give, if that's okay with you, Lee and Claire, give the opportunity to Julia to share a little bit about MyDesmond, which I think is going to be a bit more interactive through the chat forum, but I think will help us all understand what I've been rabbiting on about and what it really looks like in action. So
Thanks, Bernie. I think that's great to see all of that information. And of course, when we send out the email to everyone, we can include those links for you, and we'll share them on the hub as well. And I think as a diabetes research charity, we get asked lots of times, how can I support research? How can I get involved in research? What research is going on? So great to have all of that information there. Bernie, can I ask a question?
Of course you can.
Before Julia, we hand over to Julia. You mentioned the successes in reduction in HbA1c through the course.
Yeah.
I wonder if many people that have joined us this evening understand the significance of those reductions in reducing long-term complications. And I know it's only a small reduction can make a big difference, can't it?
Absolutely, and this was a significant reduction in terms of, so HbA1c, and this is, please not telling people how to suck eggs or whatever, but it identifies, it's the long-term blood sugar, but more importantly, it identifies long-term complications. And the lower the HbA1c reading is every 3-6 months, then the greater chance of less complications. And that's the bit that we have an interest in. But more importantly, I think we have an interest as well around people's quality of life, because we'd like to see a world free of complications of diabetes completely. That would be amazing. And that's why this reduction in a biomedical outcome or a biomedical marker is just so significant from just one course of Desmond.
Definitely.
I think we recognise the dose effect of Desmond will eventually wear off, but what we're saying right now, that dose effect for 1 6-hour intervention has been phenomenal.
Yeah, and we're lucky now, aren't we, to have access to all of this, especially with the changes in technology and online resources, as opposed to years ago when we would go and sit in a clinic, do a course and then go home. This is available all the time to people.
Absolutely. Thanks, Lee. Julia, I think we're back over to you now to do a bit of screen sharing and show us a little bit about MyDesmond. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to do a bit of a walkthrough of our MyDesmond programme. Like we said, we've got many programmes on the platform, but obviously we're concentrating and looking at the type 2 diabetes programme. And this came, like Bernie said, from our traditional face-to-face Desmond and was put into the digital platform quite a few years ago now, but has gone from strength to strength in terms of the content and all the features and things that are on it. So I'll show my screen, and what I'm going to be sharing with you is the desktop version. What I mean by that is, like Bernie said, it can be viewed on different devices. So that means that this is what you would see if you were on your laptop or a desktop at home. And it would be a slightly different view if you're on a mobile phone or an iPad, okay? The features are all there, they're just in a slightly different order depending on what device you're on, okay? So this is what we call our homepage on MyDesmond. And when people are added to the MyDesmond platform, they would have received an email with a registration code in and a link. And that would have been set up by their local site, their local sort of GP practice, or whoever they'd been in to see who'd referred them to structured education. And often this is the first port of call for structured education in many sites. It's sort of digital first, and then going into sort of group to groups or virtual delivery. So it's a very simple sign-up process with a few questions around a registration. And when you've completed that registration, this is what you see when you get on the programme. And there's lots of features that you can see here on the programme, in the fact that we have things called learning sessions and booster sessions, and I'll show you a few of those in a moment. But what we also have down the left-hand side is what we call trackers. So that might be tracking activity levels, or it could be tracking your health and thinking about recent results. So we were just talking about HbA1c, and in the health trackers, we have a way, and you can see we've got a list of different health markers that people might be having that are on the programme in their latest blood test results. And if they have access to those results and know what they are, they can actually log them. And HbA1c is one of those tests that can be logged in the system on the programme. So, for example, I've logged a few here, and so it gives me a nice little graph so I can see over longer periods of time how my HbA1c is doing, whether it's going up, whether it's coming down, whether it's doing a bit of up and down. So it's only the HbA1c test because we're looking at the long-term impacts of structured education, type 2 diabetes. So it's not currently linked to CGM or finger prick testing. It may be in the future, but currently at the moment it's not, okay? So very much around the HbA1c. But you can also track blood pressure readings if you've had blood pressure readings. So again, you can see differences in your two, whether that's the top figure, which is when your heart is working at its hardest, or it might be the bottom figure of your blood pressure when it's relaxing. So you can have a look again at how those readings are doing. And if you have new readings, you can update sort of more recent ones and add those in, select your date, and it will also add in any new dates as well. Okay. So there's lots of different things, including cholesterol, healthy eating, waste and weight as well, that you can add into the health trackers function. And the other part that I mentioned that people can use, and we were just talking about a bit about Steps for Health, which is one of our lifestyle activity programs, but within the type 2 diabetes program, we also have a way of checking activity levels. And people nowadays have smart devices, they have smart watches. So we have got agreements that we can sync to Fitbit accounts, to Google Fit accounts. So if people can use their Apple Watches and connect those to Google Fit, we can pull that data through. And equally with Garmin devices as well. But some people don't have fancy smartwatches and things. So they might have a pedometer on their wrist, on their waist, or they might have steps just on their phone when they have it in their pocket or their handbag. So people can manually input their steps as well. So steps, like we said, and that increase in physical activity is strongly linked to helping with type 2 diabetes. So by tracking those physical activity levels and self-monitoring, we do know that that can lead to positive changes in people's activity levels, and then therefore positive changes in things like HbA1c and their weight and their dietary changes as well. So again, with this one, we can add our steps in. We can view previous steps, for example. And we can do that manually. We don't have to do that with a fancy device, although it can do that. We can literally just add in any steps that we've done. I've probably done 10 more since I last inputted this, so I can add that in. So yeah, we can keep an eye on that as well. But one of the other things that we can do is, you can see here at the top, is that I have set myself a little step target. So I wanted to say, right, well, I'm going to set myself a target of 10,000 steps a day. That's not achievable for everybody, but that's what I've set my target as. So actually, when I'm on my homepage, for example, it will tell me how many more steps I still need to do to get to that point. So it's just going to take a moment just to load up. Okay. So you can see here, we've got the steps remaining today. So I've currently done 2,110, and it's telling me I've still got 7,890 to go, and it's 8 o'clock at night. So looks like I'll be going out for a walk in a bit. So we can see then, again, using platforms, using MyDesmond can help people set themselves small goals, small achievable goals. That's probably not achievable for me today. So I can adjust my step target if I see fit as well. So it's a great way of tracking any of our general health, but also our physical activity levels within the programme. And then we can also set ourselves some goals using something called the decision maker. And in the decision maker, we can go through and have a little bit of a think about, oh, I want to think about my blood glucose readings. And it's going to ask me a few questions to go through to set myself a little goal about helping to reduce some of my blood glucose levels. I'm not going to go through it all, but those sorts of goal setting is built into the programme as well. One of the other things, just to show you in terms of the activity, is something that Bernie mentioned earlier, which is the Buddies system. And the Buddies system is a way that, even though somebody that has been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, who's been offered this programme and has registered, they can ask their family and friends if they want to be involved as well. And the Buddies system basically is a way of inviting very much yourself, it would be somebody that's on the programme, that they can actually input the email address of a friend, and then that friend will automatically get an email that says, your friend has asked you to join this programme, and then they can join the programme as well. They won't get access to everything, but they do get access to a lot of content that's in our useful information section, which still has lots of information about what type 2 diabetes is, how to manage it, medications that their friend may be on or their loved one may be on. So still lots and lots of information for them to access for their own understanding as well. But what it does do is enter the person who's given out their invites, as well as the buddies, their own little sort of activity group. So then when they come in and log on, they will be able to see what their friends have done and how far they're doing between their different activity levels. They can set themselves targets as a group as well. So it's a real way to bring a very personalised touch to this type of programme, where people feel that they're interacting not just with people that they don't know, but with people that they do know. Which kind of leads us on a little bit to how people can interact with other people on the programme. And one of the main features and highly used features is our chat forum. And in our chat forum, there are ways to interact with other people on the programme. It's like any other chat forum that are in multiple different programmes. They can post a question. I'm not going to open it at the moment because it is a live chat forum, and there'll be people on it at the moment. But there are ways to, you can post a question in the general chat, you can post a question in a chat specifically about exercise. And like we said, there are 60,000 registered users on that programme, so there will always be somebody to help and answer your question and seek support pretty instantly, to be fair. It's a very busy chat forum, and everybody sort of is very friendly and looks after each other in that and helps each other and supports them through their type 2 diabetes journey. One of the, if that is something that most people, that's where they ask their questions, but if they have something that they really want to ask an expert about, they can go into Ask the Expert function. And this is where they can send a question and it will come through directly to us at head office in Leicester, the Diabetes Centre. One of our experts in nutrition, exercise and diabetes will be able to answer those questions and send them back to the participant directly. And that's a very private session. Nobody else can see those questions. So that's why I can open that page up, because it's all private, it's all in the back end of MyDesmond as such. So nobody else will see our response as well as the person's question. And that goes the same for technical support. If somebody's having any issues and doesn't quite understand maybe how to sync their devices, they can ask questions about that as well. So there are lots of the interactive things that somebody can do and log and use within the programme. But like I say, there are lots of educational material within the programme. There are things that we call learning sessions, and they are the information that as soon as somebody logs into the programme, they have access to straight away. So that will be topics such as what is type 2 diabetes, some of the ways of monitoring type 2 diabetes, some of the treatments around type 2 diabetes, as well as lots of information about physical activity and food and drink choices and things as we go through. So lots of information within those. And then the other thing that we have is something that we call booster sessions. And the booster sessions are things that are little add-ons to what's in the learning sessions, but they're what we call drip feeding. So anybody accessing this programme would get a new bit of information provided every week, and it's timed from their first login, and they'll get an email to say there's new information, you can now log in and have a look at this, and there's new topics such as about standing, there can be new topics about taking control of food choices, strength training, reducing stress. And that means that there's always something new to view when logging in. There's always something extra to have a look at. So again, a way to help with engagement and bringing people into the programme. So one of the things that we were going to just have a little look at, and if you want to use the chat function, I think hopefully this will work, is one of the topics that we have in here is food and weight. And in our food and weight section, we have lots of little interactive. So it's probably one of the other things to say in learning sessions and in booster sessions, there are videos, there are audio files, there are activities, there are quizzes, lots of different things that you can do. And one of the ones that we're going to have a little look at is one of our, what we call our 100 calorie game. So one of our 100 calorie games here. So this activity is to try and get people to think about what 100 calories might look like. So if we're thinking about type 2 diabetes and thinking about how hard it can be to lose weight, and often that's what people tell us, and we all know, we've all tried it and tried many different ways, it can be quite difficult. So we're talking about small changes in here. So my question really to everybody on here is, I can do this activity and show you sort of what it looks like, but is which images do you think are 100 calories? So I'll read them out as well, but in case it's a little bit small on your screen. But we've got here a small glass of wine. Go on, Bernie, sorry.
I was going to ask if you can make it slightly bigger so that then the images, I don't know if that's possible or not, so that then that's so much better. The images are then just much, much bigger, making it easier. Okay,
Yeah,
sorry, Julia.
yeah. So we've got a small glass of wine. We've got a bit random, 28 grams of dry pasta. I'm not sure, but who eats dry pasta? But 28 grams of dry pasta. We've got 12 grams of oil. We've got half a pint of beer. We've got 12 grams of fat or butter solid sort of fat, 50 grams of chapati, 25 grams of uncooked rice, 126 grams of dried chickpeas, a medium skinny latte, everybody likes a good one of those, 230 grams of vegetables or salad, 150 grams of raw potato. It's probably a better way to describe that is actually 154 grams of boiled potatoes, 2 chocolate fingers, so a Kit Kat essentially, and 70 grams of cooked chicken. So if you want to, if this will work, put something in the chat. If somebody else is happy to read it out for me, that would be great. And I will select which ones you think are 100 calories, approximately 100 calories.
I'll read them out.
Thank you, Claire.
No one's dared yet. Come on, somebody. No.
Who's going to be brave?
Lee, can you be brave?
Yeah, go on, Lee. What do you think?
Well, I'm kind of looking at them, and in my mind, I'm thinking perhaps all of them are 100 calories.
Okay.
Um,
Oh, here we go.
oh,
Sarah thinks it's a small glass of wine. Lisa Daniel thinks it's the Kit Kat, and Christopher Price thinks it's the half pint of beer.
Okay, so that's 3. Okay, anybody got any others that they think would be 100 calories? If not, I will do the reveal.
Oh, Sarah's back with the skinny latte.
Okay.
Kit Kat's in the lead for 2.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, another Kit Kat.
Another Kit Kat. Okay, well, we'll do the reveal then. Okay, so we've got selected the
Paul
glass
says
of
all
wine.
of them.
All. So we've got the glass of wine, half a pint of beer, skinny latte, chocolate fingers quite a few times over. Okay, so let's confirm that and see what happens. Okay. So yeah, so basically Lee was right, and whoever else said it was right, they're all 100 calories, approximately 100 calories. Okay.
Paul Sumner's got it right. Well done, Paul.
Yeah. So I think it's to highlight the fact that it's about proportions of food. So although the food, the pictures there do represent those portions, it's just to highlight that, say, for example, if we think about what we get with vegetables and salad, 230 grams, actually, if you imagine a plate in front of you with your evening meal, for example, that is pretty much half your plate, is around 230 grams of either mixed salad or vegetables. So you get a lot for your money as such. You get a lot for 100 calories, as well as lots of other things that you're going to get out of that food. Whilst the opposite of that, I suppose, is your 12 grams of oil, and your 12 grams of fat and butter, which actually, when you do look at it, isn't a lot. So we talk about that in the fact that it's highly calorific, very small amounts are very rich in calories. So it's often useful for people to start to think about the differences. So if we wanted to, say, make a meal out of that and think about some chapati with some chicken that was cooked in oil, with a side salad and with a glass of wine to drink, and a Kit Kat for pudding, and we wanted to try and reduce that by 100 calories, what would people want to do? What would be the one thing, their personal choice as to what they would maybe take out of that?
not the wine.
Yeah, it's often funny when with sessions, often people sort of say, "Oh no, not the alcohol. Keep that one." So yeah, so that's one of the sort of what we call the selection activities in the programme, around the interactive sort of nature of the programme that people can do. One of the other things that's also in here, which is very similar, sorry, I clicked the wrong one then, the healthy food choices, is we've got one which is called the buffet challenge. So very similar. So thinking about which images do we think are high in fat, sugar, salt, and calories. We're not going to go, but just to show you, there's lots of different ways to go through that for often people that are eating out and going to socializing, to help again identify, maybe not to say not to have it at all, but just to think about which ones are going to have more of the sort of calories and fat in as well. And the other one to show you, if I just go back to food and weight and go to step 9. Oh, no, not that one. That's just showing you some other things. Is what we have quizzes within the section. So the quizzes within MyDesmond are not, although it will give you it will tell you whether it's right or wrong. It's not recorded anywhere. It's not we would never know whether somebody got a question right or wrong or anything. It's just for whoever's using its personal understanding. So I suppose this is another question. So if you reduced your calories, so we've just shown you what 100 calories some of those images are. If we reduced our intake of 100 calories a day and kept that up for a year, how much weight do you think you could lose in a year if you reduced by 100 calories a day? What do people think? 4 to 5 kilograms, 3 kilograms, 6 kilograms, which is a stone. Any thoughts on that one?
A stone.
Stone, Lee's saying.
5 kilograms, Christopher thinks.
5 kilograms, the 4 to 5.
Yes, so does Cassandra. She thinks it's, oh no, Cassandra thinks it's a stone.
Thinks it's a stone. Okay.
Paul Summers thinks it's 3 kg.
Okay. So yeah, so it tells you straight away that it's actually 4 to 5 kilograms, so about 8 to 11 pounds you can lose in a year just by eating 100 less calories a day.
Wow.
And the next question is, which of these foods contains less than 100 calories? So these are some different foods now. So we've got half a can of value baked beans, a soft white roll, a bag of Quavers crisps, 2 snack-sized sausage rolls, or 25 grams of cashew nuts. Any idea which of those has less than 100 calories?
Anybody? Quavers, Sarah thinks.
Quavers, okay. Yeah, so Quavers is the right answer. And the final one is, which always makes me laugh, how long would you have to iron for to burn 100 calories? So I'm assuming it's your standing and ironing, but how long would you have to do that for to burn off that 100 calories if you did decide to have the Kit Kat and the glass of wine?
Sarah says too long. Cassandra says 50 minutes.
Yeah.
I'd go 50 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Minutes.
So there are quicker ways, it says. So you can do a 12-minute slow jog, or you could do 22 minutes of hoovering, or 22 minutes of brisk walk, 20 minutes of brisk walking. So different answers there.
Cassandra said she'd lose through boredom if she was ironing.
Yeah. So that's a bit of a whistle-stop tour, really, and shows you some of the things that are on the MyDesmond platform. I hope that's been useful for everybody. I suppose it's, over to any questions, or if there's anything else anybody wants me to show them, let me know. I'll come on screen share though for a moment.
I think that's great, Julia.
Can I ask a quick question? Are we going from numbers to percentages on HbA1c now? Which one's more used now?
So the numbers are nationally now more used. There are some small pockets of areas that still use percentages. So often certainly in MyDesmond and in Desmond, we have the option for people to record in both, partly because we've got people that use the programs that have had diabetes for a very long time and may still get their results in percentages. So there is the option to do both. And similar to like weight, you can switch between imperial and metric, and the same you can with HbA1c. So you can record it in whichever one, and the graphs and everything will convert to your preferred choice.
Okay.
I think that's it's great to see the program like that, because we all work in the diabetes field and in diabetes education, and we just know, don't we, that education is so key to informing people and empowering them.
Absolutely.
It's been a cornerstone of everything we do here, since the charity began. So Claire and I, we didn't mention at the beginning, but Claire and I both have diabetes as well. So we're end users of these courses and this information, and they do really, really work.
Yes, I think that idea of, you know, either buddying up with your own family and friends or somebody else who's on the system is we all know about, you know, just checking your steps every day and saying, well, how many have you done? And feeling very glib if you've kind of beaten them. So I think anything that gamifies. Oh, we've got some questions, right? Lisa's asking, is there a monthly fee for the app?
No. So for an end user, there isn't. Meaning you have your local, whichever part of the country you're in, your local ICB, your Integrated Care Board, will have commissioned this from us. And that means it's free at the point of access. It's like anything in the NHS, it's free at the point of access for the person living with diabetes. If you want to know whether your local area is included, it's on our Desmond mail. Oh, Julia has just put it on our chat to say where is your nearest centre and whether you're not, you're included. And if you're not, then it's sometimes an ideal opportunity because people living with diabetes are probably the biggest advocate around. And if you do say, excuse me, this is unfair, this is what I want, then you normally get. And we are, I consider that the cheapest, meaning we don't have a price per person, because if the ICB signs up, we sort of say, please, if you have 60,000 people with diabetes, get every single one of them to sign up onto the app. You know, there is no cost per person. I think the cheapest is 10 pence per person in one of our ICBs. It's just ridiculous for a year. You know, it's like giving things away for free. But yeah, it's trying to find a value in it as well.
Brilliant. And I guess the MyDesmond course works alongside things like the NHS Type 2 prevention programme and weight loss programme.
Yeah, it can do, absolutely. And I think all of these become, it's whatever's going to work for that person is how we look at it. And for some people it is, you know, they're true to Desmond and MyDesmond and will say, yeah, absolutely, this is what does it for me. For others, it could be something different. Yeah.
Sarah's saying, do you find that people stay on the app in the programme once they've signed up for a long time to keep refreshing knowledge?
Yeah, they do. As I said, we've had people on it for years. And there's one chap on it who literally all he uses it for is step count, nothing else. You know, if we track his anonymously behind the scenes, then that's what he uses it for. But we're thinking, well, actually, that's still working for you.
Yeah, and I think the beauty of it is that you can work through it as quickly or as slowly as you like. There's no right or wrong of which parts you should engage with. You can use the learning sessions, you can just use the trackers. That is all part of education because of that feedback at all times as well. So it's kind of got a bit of everything. So yeah, people can interact with all the different parts of it and they'll still get some benefit from that.
Okay, so my sister-in-law has type 2 diabetes, and I say to her, what's your HbA1c? You know, I don't know. She doesn't know, and she's never done any education. And, you know, how do you get someone who's not engaged at all to engage? Maybe I should show her it.
Yeah. It is quite a tricky one, isn't it, with that? And I think that's just the support, hopefully, from their local practice that would be maybe putting them on the MyDesmond platform. But also, if they're the access to results is always a little difficult, and we spend, I'm sure, like you guys, we spend a lot of time talking to people about asking for their results, and they are their results, they're not their GP's results. So, you know, keeping a record of them and using trackers to do that, or even just literally writing it down so that we're aware of that. But we hope that when people do register and do get into the programme, that there's information there to then start to kind of help them reflect on what they need to do and what they might need to take more control over. So it has been designed, like we were saying, with a lot of the what we call behaviour change techniques sort of embedded into it to help with that. But sometimes it's difficult when people are coming into the programme and maybe not know exactly what it is. So, you know, getting the people that are referring people to MyDesmond, getting them to explain what it is first is crucial for people to understand what they're signing up for. Yeah.
Sarah's saying tracking of things like steps is great to support accountability, and it is.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It just gives you that incentive. You sort of go, oh, you know, it is late at night. Poor Julia's got what, 7,500 steps yet to go. She'll be walking the next few miles. But you know, it does. It just helps build it up. Go, I'll tell you what, should we just go once round the block? Yeah, should we just do something that'll just support and help? Because day in, day out, it is challenging just living with a condition such as diabetes.
But it's so good when you do see good results.
Oh, and progress, absolutely, because you think this is about me, this is about my health, my future, my outcomes. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Because it isn't a one size fits all, is it? It is very personal to each person.
Absolutely, absolutely, yes. And in the same way, what Julia's talking about there with, you know, the 100 calories, for some people, you know, you sort of said, yeah, don't lose the glass of wine. But for others, it could be actually the butter can go. You know, I don't need that much butter. You know, I wouldn't miss it. But yeah, you know, leave me my glass of wine. Or actually, that potato is that makes my day. So I can't lose that. But what else can I? You know, I'm not bothered about the chocolate bar at the end of the day or whatever it is. It all depends on you know what floats your boat really with it.
Yeah.
Again,
And I think getting people to, sorry, Claire.
I'm just saying, it comes back to knowledge.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't have that knowledge, what is 100 calories?
Yeah. And the difference between, you know, like when we show this oil, we will normally show it in like a great big bottle, and you've got this tiny little bit at the end, and people go, oh, and you go, no, it is. Trust me, there is quite a few calories in there. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I love that having the accessibility to that all the time as the app is great, because again, I think the more people use it and the information about the calories and carbs and all of that, I think, you know, as a person, I've had type 1 for 25 years, and Claire will know as well, that after a while that information sinks in, and then you end up with a built-in calorie carb counter in your head. So you just look at food and you know what it is, and you make decisions, informed decisions, but probably on autopilot because you've had the repetition of learning this stuff. So I think that's the education again. It's, you know, it's cumulative, isn't it? It just keeps adding up the more people use it.
Very true. I must remember when we've done some groups right at the beginning, and for a lot of this sort of food activity would be plastic-based food, you know, so people would pick up food and pop it on a plate. So they'd pick up the plate and go, that plate's small, and you go, no, that's a normal plate. So, because if you think about it, our plates have got bigger, everything's got bigger, you know, it's like supersizing it all. So, you know, if you have a plate with a rim on, you might have thought, well, actually, the food doesn't quite have to go all the way up to the rim. Perhaps it needs to sit in the middle of that plate or whatever. But I think it's looking as well as to what is a normal portion versus what is a supersized portion versus actually what does that sort of look like? Can I live with a tiny bit less of that?
Yeah. It's funny, I was in our local carvery a few weeks ago, and I was watching people. Some people are really sensible, and they've got their roast chicken and their vegetables and a bit of stuffing, and some people are sort of walking away with this mountain of food, and you think, how are you possibly gonna? I felt sick looking at it. I'm like, how can you eat all that food? But yeah, I guess you're right. To them, that's their,
Well, that's why they've gone to the buffet.
yeah, that all you can eat.
But the business itself makes money because actually most people can't eat as much as they think they can.
No,
I know people have power, but there is the business works out, doesn't it? Charge per head, and can you eat that amount of food? Probably not.
not really.
Mm.
Have we got any more
No.
questions?
No, no, I can't see anything.
We've
Everybody,
summoned everybody into silence, I think.
yes,
Yes.
they're all happy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I feel a bit nasally right now. Our cat's come in and he's shedding fur all over the place. So.
No. Have you got any of our lovely guests out there in cyberspace that would like to ask Julia and Bernie a question about the programme or anything around the programme?
Mhm.
No.
No. And Julia and Bernie, I know you've obviously got stats showing the impact of the programme.
Oh, here we go. Do I need to go through my gap to enter the
GP?
No, it's a web.
GP, sorry, typo. Yeah, GP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you want to do it, Benny? Sorry.
Yes, I think the first thing is to check on the link that we've popped in the chat as to whether or not it's available in your area. If it is available, yeah, pop to your GP or your local health, your local diabetes team who will know about it. Your practice nurse will know about it. If it's available in your area, everybody should know about it. And any one of those will then should be able to give you. They should be able to enter your email twice and give you access to the programme. There is a local administrator for every sort of area that we deal with. That's all they have to do. Once you've got it, you literally go, yep, activated, let's go. I'm in there.
Amazing.
And then we do ask you lots of questions when you first register. And that's more so about actually how do we look, see what's working, what's effective, what's going on for you. But you only do that once, and once you've done it, you've done it. Yes.
And if you are, although we said it's not an app that you can download from an app store, if you are accessing it on a phone, you can make it look like an app on your phone because you can save it to your home screen and it will look like a little icon. So although it'll still open up in your sort of web browser on your device, it does look like an app when you're accessing it on a small device.
Paul's asking, I've only seen the questions on the forums, didn't realise there was so much more. How do I get on it? So again, I think it's...
Yeah, that's the same one again. Check in your area. And if it is available, then either your GP, your practice nurse, your local diabetes team, they will know about it. And if they don't, to one extent, I'm sort of offering this one out, contact us at the Leicester Diabetes Centre. Let's see if we can help and support.
Yeah. We talk to so many people, especially newly diagnosed, who they don't know what's out there or where to look. So
okie dokie, I like that one, Paul.
Yeah, okie dokie. Julia and Bernie, is there any real world data showing that type 2 diabetes complications or diagnoses are reducing because of structured education courses like this?
You've shared from Leicester. Oh, sorry, somebody's just written.
Yeah.
Sorry, what does ICC?
Integrated Care Board. Used to be this. It used to be called other things.
Yes.
Primary care trust, primary care organisations, integrated care boards. It's essentially your local setup outside of the hospital for care is probably the best way of describing it. I've been around so long now, I think that if I look back on various badges from workplaces, you'd have thought I've gone from health authority to health boards to back to something else again. It's just how it's organised. In the same way you have local councils, you have district councils. Health is pretty much the same, and what they're now trying to do is align healthcare with councils, because again they recognise that healthcare and social care and housing, everything is linked. Because if you're worried about, are you going to live, where does the next meal come from, what's going on, you're not going to be in a position of being able to look after your own health and your own care. So it's recognising that what's worrying me today might not be the fact that I haven't had my A1C checked. It's actually, hang on a minute, I'm really struggling around cost of living, I'm struggling around my rent, I'm struggling around the damp or mold or whatever it is. And sometimes they're outside of healthcare, but they do have an impact on healthcare. And what we see now is that footprint for healthcare mirrors localities within district and councils. And that's much better, because then you have public health teams who are predominantly responsible for messaging around welfare and prevention, and they're now much more into a holistic part of healthcare, because again, you can't go and say, all right, we'll have the prevention messages over there and they're provided by so and so, but then in the NHS we'll also have another prevention one. You have to align and bring people together. And Lee, I'm sorry, I was answering your question, which was around, yes, the impact is there around some of the data we did from our Leicester group, to say that actually if you reduce HbA1c, which is this long-term blood sugar, yes, it does have an impact. What we don't know is at what point does that impact wear off. So if, for example, it's very akin to any diabetes medication, you know, you start on one medication. So typical people living with type 2 diabetes will be started on something like metformin, but then after a number of years, what you find is, well, actually people need to insert yet another medication because your pancreas is just living differently, you've got slightly older, whatever. So you introduce something else, and then it could be, well, actually blood pressure's still up, so let's introduce the therapy there. Your cholesterol's not quite right, let's introduce something else there. And as age is probably the biggest for us all, meaning the older we become, the more complicated some of this becomes for us, because we can lie about anything else, but age eventually catches up with us all.
Yes, unfortunately. But any more questions there, Claire, from the audience?
I've just checked on where I am, Yorkshire and the Humber,
Right, okay.
and we don't have anything. North Lincolnshire is the nearest,
Yes.
and North East Lincolnshire. And as we're quite a big area, Yorkshire and the Humber.
Absolutely, you are. And I think that's where sometimes it is worth the question to your local ICB, your local integrated care board. Check them out, Google them, and just sort of think, actually, let's ask them a question.
I think I will.
What is available? I'm living with type 2 diabetes. What is available in my area? And they'll probably come back and say to you, well, the NHS has a free offer of living what's it called, living well, living healthy with type 2 diabetes. It's not the same. It literally is apples and pears. I'm sorry to say that, but it really is. And you just think, we just need something that supports people living with.
And I guess you can ask the question, why haven't we got access to this program?
Yeah, why have we not got access to Desmond in my area? Because we recognise it's the gold standard. I would like access to this in my area for me.
I'm on it.
She's on it already.
It's on a mission.
Excellent, Claire. That's it. And I think if you get a response back, yeah, even better. I think it's just about making people accountable. Because they're spending our taxpayer money. As taxpayers, this healthcare is provided, you know, free at the point of access for us. So I think we do have an accountability to think, actually, what are you doing with my money around healthcare? And you will have ICBs, you know, saying, I'm sorry, but, you know, money's really tight, whatever. We're going, well, actually, this is a really important part of that journey with diabetes.
Yeah.
If we get this right, we can get lots of other things right. It's not about waiting for things to go wrong. It's about, the NHS plan talks about prevention, early doors, early intervention. And I think it's quoting some of that back to say, this is what we want, but your voice is far more powerful than trust me.
Yeah. Power to the people.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And we found that in the past, that people have been not militant about the whole thing, but just actually, no, I'm not going to go away. I still want my question answering. I still want a level of care that I believe should be commensurate with my disease and what I'm living with.
Definitely. And that's across the board, isn't it? With structured education, access to technology like CGMs for certain people, and different programs.
Absolutely.
Any more questions from our lovely audience, Claire?
Oh, yes.
Oh,
Cassandra, will this program be useful if I'm controlled by diet but have gone really low carb to do so And now what to live something like is a little normal without taking my eyes off the ball and making my cholesterol higher.
Yes, I think it would be.
Yeah. Yeah, so one of the things with Desmond, MyDesmond, is that we don't talk about very specific diets. It's very general health information. So, but anybody can use the program, whatever your dietary requirements, dietary approach is. And it can support you through, like even like we say, using the activity trackers to sort of help with that side of it as well. And you can track, you can set yourself targets for fruit and veg and things as well, so you can sort of track how you're getting on meal wise and things. But yeah, it's for anybody. It's not about medicine. Many people with type 2 diabetes are not on medication, so therefore it is very much more around physical activity and dietary changes. So, yeah. Completely.
I noticed you had a piece on the platform about type 2 and testing.
Yeah. So there's lots of information. Well, information about HbA1c, what it is, why it's only done so many times a year, or even just yearly. So yeah, lots of information around that, and also information about why you may not be given fingerprint testing, why you wouldn't be given a CGM as somebody with type 2 diabetes. So yeah, hence why that's not sort of part of the tracking as such, because it's not a technology or anything that's being used within the type 2 population. There are some studies that we've got where in research world where people are given access to things like CGM, and there might be ways to sort of link the two together at some point in the future, but not currently. But yeah, the monitoring is something that it's one of our higher traffic sort of sessions that people look at. Yeah.
And that's an evolving thing as well, isn't it? We can see, and we have done over a very short space of time, the last few years, that technology, especially CGM, is becoming more and more widely available. And we know that there are CGMs specifically for people with type 2 on the horizon, and even people diet control. So that's just something that's going to continue to change, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. But I think in terms of sort of day to day, if people think, so if I've had a meal in the evening and I'm just going to flop in front of the TV for a few hours versus actually I'm going to have a meal and maybe an hour later I'm just going to go for a bit of a walk, in terms of just how you feel, do you feel thirsty? Do you feel tired? Or how do you actually feel? And sometimes that's enough just to help you monitor, because there's nobody know their own body like themselves. So yeah.
Yeah, that's very true. And again, I think once you live with diabetes for a while, you become really, really conscious of all of those subtle signs that your body's giving you.
Absolutely.
Paul says, I tried the CGM for 10 days for free and was amazed at the results. I'd urge everyone to try one.
Yeah, we have quite a lot of people that say that they access the 10-day sort of free trial that you can do by logging on to the company's websites and things. So often people do find it quite revealing when they're monitoring before and after meals and before and after physical activity and things. So yeah, we do come across many people that have done that now, and that's in the traditional Desmond face-to-face groups as well. Lots of people, there's obviously big discussions usually around that.
I think they're another tool. They're amazing, of course, but they're another one of those visual aids that the more you see yourself keeping in your range and within your target, it just makes you work harder and harder to keep to that, and do better. So that it drives even better diabetes management. Any more questions, Claire, from our guests?
Nothing so far.
Okay. So if there are no more questions, Bernie and Julia, do you have any closing thoughts or words for everybody?
My goodness. I think the power of the person living with type 2 diabetes should not be underestimated. Make your point, ask, because again, if you don't ask, you don't get. That's how I always look at it. And we are trying, certainly within research, to make a difference and to understand the relationship between either food choices, between very low calorie stuff, between exercise, and what are the break points that really have that impact.
Yes.
And that's huge, and that's why, you know, the DRWF is working as well. It's research, the research friendly site, as we call it. But yes, it's around, you know, we really do value what goes on to understand, to create a better understanding. Julia, what would be your sort of?
My thing is kind of going back to, like what we were saying earlier, is about, you know, we talk about Desmond and MyDesmond are very much structured education, where we're trying to empower people to help them self-manage, building their confidence, and part of that is accessing things like results and asking when people say, oh, your results are fine, sort of saying, okay, but what are they? And asking for their actual results. And you know, we often sort of talk to people about, you can go into your GP practices and you can ask for a printout of your results. You're absolutely entitled to that. Or equally, if you're connected to the NHS app, you can see results and things on that. So I think it's just empowering people to, like we say, ask and push themselves forward to get that, because that is knowing what's going on in your body, and knowing, you know, is the key really to then take the steps that you need to take to make a change about it. So yeah, I think that would be my thing about sort of, pushing forward, and specifically around test results and having access to them.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Claire?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm all about the numbers and accessing and knowing where you are, and just learn as much as you can. It's like anything. The more you know, the better you get at it, and the more you'll understand. And you know, looking at that plate of food and how many carbs and how many calories are in it, and what can I make a change. It is, as you say, it becomes second nature in the end. And you look at the buffet of brown, and you know, what am I going to select? Put the salad on the plate first.
Yeah.
Avoid the sausage roll.
I think for me, it's that after many years of working for the charity in diabetes education, it's seeing the changes that education make to people. And you do see real life-changing improvements that people make. And also, I think, you know, a lot of people out there may criticize the NHS. It's a big organization, but I would have to say to anyone listening that overwhelmingly, I think we are incredibly lucky to have access to such amazing resources, education, and Claire and I know you would agree, we're blessed really to work with people like you, Bernie and Julia. We've got some amazing, dedicated colleagues across the NHS that we have the pleasure of working with, and it's, you know, it's amazing.
Yeah, and they're all really humble.
Very humble. So, on that note, shall we wrap up?
Definitely.
I think so.
It's dark out there, so
Yeah. Huge thank you to Bernie and Julia for joining us this evening, and Claire for monitoring all the questions. Thank you to our audience for joining us. What we'll do tomorrow following this webinar is send you all an email with all of the links that Bernie and Julia will provide for us to the program and all the resources that run alongside it. In November, we're working with Bernie and her team again, aren't we, to do the research webinar. So Bernie touched on all of the research that Leicester does earlier in the presentation, and we're going to be talking about how you can get involved in research and why that's so important. But we'll send you the details for that. And as you can see on the screen there, we do have to say a really huge thank you to our friends and colleagues over at Dexcom, who are sponsoring our United Through Diabetes program again this year, and also our friends at Insulet and Embecta, who are also supporting us. So a very big thank you and good night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.